And great. So welcome, and hopefully more people will show. Thank you for coming to the Pride, our Pride Power Up. We've changed our name to Power Up, a Washington Rights workshop with LGBTQ allyship. We are gonna wait for a second or two and a few for other people to show up. And if you want to see the live transcript, all you have to do is down at the bottom, you can click it. If you don't want to see it, you can also remove it. Sometimes it's distracting for those that don't need it. And then lastly, as an active event, we are asking you to please feel free to ask questions and to join into the conversation today. And we will start within 1 minute. I'm going to just give 1 more minute in hopes. More people. So, and feel free to, it looks like almost everybody has their pronouns on their page. Feel free to put your pronouns so that it's a great way for us to acknowledge you the way that you want to be acknowledged. And if you don't know how to do that, let's just, click on your name and you can make the change at the 3 little buttons up above. All right, so let's go ahead and begin. I would like to take a moment as we begin our program. LGBTQ allyship and Fair Work Center acknowledge that we are on occupied traditional lands of the Duwamish people, and who are the original stewards of this land and continue to live here today. So I'd like to invite you to contribute to the financial gift of the Duwamish people through Real Change Duwamish, and I will put that in the chat box here in a second. But I would really like to take just 1 moment, please, of silence to recognize the children of 215 plus that were found, and just a moment of silence for them. Thank you for that. And thank you for taking that moment. So I'm trying to put this in the chat. There we are. So Real Duwamish, realrentduwamish.org. Great organization. I donate to them and give a little bit of rent to them too. I would like to also say hello, I'm Taylor, the Program Development Manager at LGBTQ Allyship, and we are really excited that we have 2 of our LGBTQ plus worker rights committee members here. We have Chris and Paige. Feel free to wave. And thank you for being here and joining us today. And then I also want to thank our amazing working partners. With us is the Fair Work Center, and that would be Colleen and Henny are here to help support our community in their worker rights, and Henny is here as the legal clinic of Fair Work Center. And we have lots of other amazing people here, and I thank you for all being here and joining us. So LGBTQ allyship builds power among LGBTQ communities and allies throughout Washington towards economic, housing, and racial and gender justice. If you're interested in working with LGBTQ allyship to fight for economic and housing justice for queers and trans community, please let us know. You can email me, you can email at info@allyship.org. We also have a variety of different committees. Like I said, we have the amazing LGBTQ Worker Rights Committee here, and we also have a Seattle Renters' Rights Committee, and we have a Senior Housing Committee that work towards renter rights, one for renter rights and one for the senior. And the renter rights one is within Seattle. So just a little plug in for those. And I can share those links a little bit later because I'm trying to multitask. But what I'm hoping that will happen this evening is if you want to know, or for this next hour, Colleen and I are going to be talking to you about some worker rights. I got renters' rights in the brain, worker rights. And then we will highlight our amazing LGBTQ plus worker rights committee members, Chris and Paige. And then because it is Pride Month and we are doing all of this around Pride, I am, we have a gay trivia, and we will be putting, we have a gift. If you get the trivia right, we have a wonderful gift. And one of the items is this beautiful tiara. Not this one's mine, but I have more. And so you won't get the one that I wore. But yes, we have this beautiful tiara. So if you want one of these, play our game. And then we will, during that time, we will be matching people up with Henny, and she'll do her magic on scheduling you an appointment if you need. So starting us off with, I want to introduce both Colleen and Henny. Please just say your name and your pronoun and whatever.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Colleen Fontana with Fair Work Center, Working Washington. I use she, her pronouns, and I am on the base building team, an educator and outreach coordinator.
Hi, everyone. My name is Henny An. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the paralegal at the Fair Work Center Legal Clinic.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And I think, okay. So we're going to start off with our first worker rights. And that is our first worker right is the paid sick and safe time. And this law was covered in all of Washington State, and Seattle pioneered this law, which started back in 2012. Do you know where to find how many hours you have for your paid sick and safe time? Anybody? Do you know where to find it? You can type in, or you can just unmute yourself. Yes, pay stub. But where on your pay stub is my question. Do you know? So do you know where to find out how many hours you have, or what if it's not on your pay stub? Because some people, it's not always on your pay stub. And where do you find it then if it's not on your pay stub? That could be, so I will tell you, on your pay stub, if it's there, it should say paid sick and safe time, right? I don't think it actually says paid sick and safe time. I think it says sick leave sometimes. Sometimes it says PSST. Sometimes it says, usually it might be under vacation or somewhere in that area. And you will start accumulating that. And if you don't have it on your pay stub, they should be giving you your accumulated hours somewhere else. So they definitely need to let you know where it is. Yeah, Chris says I get a monthly update for my gig work. And that's great that they let you know every month where you're at, you're standing. So thank you for sharing that. So you will start accumulating your paid sick and safe time when you start working, but your employer can take up to 90 days of a waiting period before you're allowed to actually use it. And for you get 1 hour of paid sick and safe time for every 40 hours that you work. If you're employed by a 249 or less full-time equivalent employees, and that's statewide. But if you work in Seattle for an employer that has 250 or more full-time equivalent employees, and equivalent means that enough people work the full-time amount, you will receive 1 hour leave you'll receive 1 hour of paid sick and safe time for every 30 hours you work. So you can use your paid sick and safe time for medical appointments. You can also use it for mental health, physical health, injury, health conditions that prevent you, that you need to be cared for. You can also use it if you need to provide care to a family member, a child that's in your family, or your partner in your household. And then you can also use it for medical appointments to help if they need to go to a medical appointment or they're injured, you can take them. Paid sick safe time also covers you for reasons related to domestic violence, sexual assault, or stalking that affect you, or to support a family member or a housemate. And I really like to emphasize that it's not just for you. If a family member or your housemate have experienced violence or sexual assault or being stalked, you can help them and be there for them. And you can utilize your paid sick and safe time. The newest addition to use the paid sick and safe time is if your workplace has been closed in order of a public official, meaning that it was closed due to COVID. You can use care for a family member whose school or place of care has been closed, and you work for a business with 250 or more or full-time employees, and the hours have been reduced or closed for health and safety reasons. Lastly, it is important to know who is covered under this. So who is covered under it are full-time people, full-time employees, part-time employees, temporary, seasonal employees, and then also seasonal employees who work within Washington State. Domestic workers are covered if they are not independent contractors, and work study participants and paid interns are covered if working within Seattle, along with undocumented employees. It does not cover independent contractors. Like I said, there is a difference in the gig works. I'm not going to go into that right now, but we can follow up with that another time. And if you have questions around that, please contact myself, Allyship, or Colleen at Fair Work Center. And Colleen had an additional piece to this.
Yeah, thank you. So like Taylor mentioned, you'll often see this show up as sick time or PSST on your pay stub, but I'm sure you all have also heard of PTO, right? Everyone has also seen PTO marked potentially on your pay stub, or we just talk about our paid leave kind of under the umbrella as PTO. And that is okay. Your employer can also mark it under PTO, but it might mean that it includes sick time and some other benefits, maybe vacation time, maybe paid holidays. So my question for you all is, do we have a protection by law? Do we have a legal right to paid vacation and holidays? What do you think? You could nod or shake your head or put it in the chat. Do we have a legal right to paid holidays or vacation? I see some nods, yeses. I see some nods, no. So for vacation and holidays, we have no legal protection for vacation and holidays to be paid. That is a benefit that our employer might give us, and hopefully we all get it. But the one that we have by law is around sick time. So for those of you who are working, do you get access to paid holidays? You can just nod or no, yes or no. I know in gig work, I imagine that's not very common for you, Chris. Yeah. Okay. So that is just a good distinction to have, that, you know, potentially an employer could put all of that under the umbrella of PTO, but you still have the right to know, okay, how many of these hours are sick time and how many are for something else, because sick time is what you definitely have the right to under the law. So it's just important to kind of keep track of that. And oh, I see a comment from Paige. Thank you. So Amazon is pretty generous with PTO and sick, but there were barriers getting short-term disability. Wow. Yeah, I unfortunately have heard a lot of issues around that. No, not a distraction. That's very relevant because these are all kind of under the umbrella of types of leave that we can take, right? And so there's some things that we should just be getting automatically, and then there's other things that we have to kind of fight for and apply for and jump through all the hoops for. Yeah. So just wanted to point that out about PTO. If you're ever confused or you're looking at your pay stub and you think this doesn't look like it's accumulating correctly or something feels a little bit off here, it doesn't hurt to ask, and we can always help in looking at that as well. And I'll pass it back to Taylor to talk about wage theft.
Yeah, thank you. That's the next law that we're going to talk about, is around wage theft, if nobody has questions around the other ones. If anybody has questions, feel free to put it in, and it's never, welcome questions. So wage theft is not, so what is wage theft? It is somewhat easier to say what it is not. What it is not is it's not being paid for minimum wage, at least the minimum wage. So if you're being paid under the minimum wage, that's wage theft. Not receiving your tips. If you're supposed to be receiving tips, you should be that, and you're not receiving them, that's wage theft. Not getting overtime pay. If you've worked more than 40 hours and you're on hourly and you don't get paid for that, that's wage theft. Not being paid for all the time that you work, same thing. And then, but it also is when wage theft, when you're working during your lunch break, during your 10-minute break, if you are asked to do an errand, like, hey, you're going to go pick up your lunch at blah, blah place down the road. Could you just drop this off on your way? That's wage theft, because you shouldn't be working. It should be uninterrupted lunch or break. I've been asked many times by different people around wage theft that work in restaurants, and they're like, I never get a break. How do you mandate that and make that happen? You still should be getting your break. Somebody covers you. And let's see. What else? Also, make sure that you aren't being misclassified. So that's another really great way to talk about, like, if they put you down as an independent contractor, but you really are working there as an employee, make sure that's not being misclassified. So always check your pay stub, make sure that all your things are there, make sure that your tip, everything should be accounted for and put in your pay stub, stating if you worked overtime, it should say overtime pay, it should say your hourly, and it should say your say you did sick, you called in sick, and it should show up that 8-hour day of sick pay. You want to make sure that all those things are there. So if you see a discrepancy, you want to make sure that you talk to your employer about it right away. Maybe it was a mistake. Honest mistakes happen, we know that. But if this is a perpetual thing, then we know that there's an issue. Did you have anything else to add to that, Colleen?
No, I just also wanted to say that even if you're being paid in cash, wage theft, it was still illegal. I think a lot of employers, I talked to folks where employers like, well, it's just casual, it's under the table, it doesn't matter, it's cash. But no, that's still money that you should be earning. And so just wanted to throw that out there as well, because I know especially sometimes with gig work or if folks, depending on their immigration status, there's a lot of reasons people work for cash, right? So just wanted to say that as well.
Yes. Does anybody have any questions about wage theft?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So you said that if you don't get your break, somebody has to cover you. Now, what happens if there's nobody to cover you? Can they add the pay for the break at the end of my check? Would that work, or is that still considered wage theft?
That is an excellent question. So I have known that there has been restaurants that ask you if you're okay with that, like not to do the break, but you should be able to leave early. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Colleen, around that, but my understanding is if you didn't get your break, then you should be able to clock out early, but you're still getting paid for your time.
Yeah, so you should definitely, I think the sort of baseline that we're hoping is that you get your breaks. And we as workers cannot waive our right to, especially the 10-minute break. So we have these two types of breaks. We have the two 10-minute breaks, one for every 4 hours, and then a 30-minute lunch break. So we cannot waive our right to those 10-minute breaks. And it's really the responsibility of the employer to make sure that all the employees can take those breaks. We know that's not always the reality. But then, yes, if you're not getting it, then you should be paid that extra compensation. So if you didn't get either of your 10-minute breaks, then you should still be getting this, paid for those 20 minutes. And then for the 30-minute, that is where there is some more flexibility, where I could decide, maybe I don't take my 30-minute break, but I leave half an hour early or whatever. But it's really important that that is coming from me as the worker, and it's not sort of pressure to me from my supervisor, which is really tricky, I think, right? It's hard sometimes to know what the balance might be in there. And there's a lot of different power dynamics. So oftentimes I've seen maybe workplaces that have kind of a written agreement, if that is something that a worker works out to do with their employer. But yeah, I think, we should really still be advocating to create a culture where people are taking their breaks, and where the employer is really taking responsibility to make sure that that can happen for everybody. That's my dream. Good question.
So with that being said, if there's no more questions, we will move on to discrimination. Colleen.
Yeah, so thank you. So discrimination, specifically in the workplace, is when someone is treated differently, unfairly based on certain protected classes. So something that I want us to talk about today is, what are those protected classes, and what even is a protected class? What does that mean? And so that means a group that's protected from discrimination. It's a certain group of people. And I want to kind of open it up to you all. What are some of those groups that you know have protections against discrimination or that you have heard of? If you want to say it out loud or you can put it in the chat, what do you think? Some protected groups who have protections from discrimination.
LGBTQ in this state, and I want to point out that I didn't have that in Georgia. In Georgia and many states, you can still be fired just for being gay or something like that.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes. Yeah, and it's really important to note that it is different in different states, right? This is a state law, state protection that we have that includes sexual orientation, gender identity. Yes, thank you. Anyone else?
Age, which
Yes.
as I'm getting older seems more important to me.
Totally. Thank you.
Aren't there also protections for people of different races and different abilities?
Yes. Yep, exactly. Those are two of them as well. Race and yeah, ability, disability. Yes. And that can be, oh, I was just going to say those can be sensory, mental, physical, right? We know there's a lot of forms that disabilities can take. And so all of those are protected.
And then Chris put in the chat, veterans and followers of different beliefs, which we put under religion.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so religion is definitely one that's under there. Veterans is an interesting one that I don't hear come up as often, but yes, I'm gonna look. Okay, yeah.
I looked it up.
Okay, great. Because I was like, I haven't interacted with a lot of veterans, and so I feel like I have not had to answer that question. But yes, thank you. Good, yeah. We all learned something. So veterans and definitely religion, that unfortunately is one that I've seen come up a lot recently. And oh, that's really good. Because that is actually an example I was going to use is we were hearing from a lot of workers that folks were not getting access to breaks for prayers throughout the day. People were being forced to work on Fridays when they were needing to go in to pray and were not being allowed to take that time, and a lot of discrimination in various ways against religious beliefs.
And so I want to say, because the chat doesn't show up on YouTube, what was written was that I will say this in exact term, but I'm not trying to praise Amazon, but they have set up prayer tents for Ramadan and even allowed temporary shift changes for Muslims. So yay. And that's what we're talking about. Chris also put in folks with criminal records are getting more protections, I believe. And yes, they are getting more protections in just the Seattle area, from my knowledge, and a little bit in Washington, but not, I think that one's still being worked on.
Yeah, we do have a law that maybe we can get into next time, that specifically talks about hiring and having more equitable practices for folks who have criminal records. And the gist of the law is that you can't use someone's criminal record against them in a job application, in the announcement, or in the first interview. So really an idea of trying to give people more of a fair chance at applying for a job, just like anybody else. So yeah, those are all correct. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. A couple of the other ones that are also related to some of the things that came up, we talked a little bit about disability, and within that is also if someone needs to use a trained guide dog or a service animal. I actually just talked to somebody about this. That can be something that employers are not always very accommodating with or toward. And then also marital status. So this again connects to talking about our queer community, LGBTQ folks. People cannot be discriminated against based on their marital status. Sexual orientation, we mentioned. Sex is also a part of this that relates also specifically to situations of sexual assault and harassment. That is considered a form of discrimination based on your sex. So if someone is experiencing that in the workplace, that is also a form of discrimination. And so there are ways that you can file something through discrimination agencies that focus on that. And then the last one that I wanted to mention, is that also includes pregnancy. So if folks are parents or pregnant, you also have protections against discrimination with that. And then just to sort of talk about like, what can we do? You know, all of these things that we're mentioning, we know that they're happening in the workplace. And so what can I do if this is happening to me? And so I think what might be good is maybe I can post these in the chat, but there are a few different agencies that investigate situations of discrimination and harassment. You can also reach out to community organizations, right? Allyship is an incredible resource. We hope that Fair Work Center and Work in Washington can also be a resource for you. And then I would also just say, talk to your coworkers, you know, if it's happening to one person, it's probably happening to somebody else. And that can be a good way to just start to get a sense of how big of an issue is this? Are a lot of people dealing with this? And then just document what's happening, you know, save your pay stubs, save your text messages. Sometimes, you know, maybe there are photos of something that happened, or you even just taking notes, you know, carry around a notebook and write down your hours or write down notes about something that happened. So just wanted to highlight all of those. And if you all think of something else too, definitely share that and let us know. And the last thing I wanted to say is that retaliation is illegal. So if you speak up about something, if you have a question and you try to talk to your boss and you say, hey, my pay stub doesn't look right, or hey, I feel like I'm being discriminated against at work. And if you are fired or your hours are cut or anything like that, that is illegal. And I sorry, now I just see the question here in the chat. So the question is, can employers require proof of service animal mental or physical health needs that they must accommodate? Yes, but I think there's some nuance there, and it's really going to depend on each situation. But it's like with, you know, when we're applying to take our FMLA or different things, we need to give some kind of notice or proof to our employer. Maybe it's just a doctor's note or something to request that accommodation. And they can ask for something like that. Again, it's really going to depend on the situation. So if someone is having a very particular example of that, then we can definitely talk about that more. I know the answer is always it depends, but just wanted to name that it can be kind of nuanced depending on the situation. But yes.
Thank you. So I would like us to move, those are three really great laws that cover around worker rights. There's more where those come from, and they are for the workers to flourish at their jobs. So we will always be covering more in the future, and we do this power up once a month. So please feel free to reach out if you need help before that, or if you feel that your rights have been violated. Like Colleen said, please make sure that you connect with either LGBTQ Allyship or Fair Work Center. We are always happy to support. So that being said, we also have our amazing, because it is Pride Month, and I am so prideful of our LGBTQ worker rights committee. And I am going to ask Chris to just give an introduction of themselves and a little bit about their experience with our group, and then also Paige after that.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Chris or Christy, and I came to this committee sort of via, I think I was responding to a survey, and then Taylor and I got along so well that we ended up doing the committee, or I was invited to the committee anyway. And I've been gig working since before it was popular. I started in Vermont several years ago, and so that's a big focus of mine. And through the committee, we've worked with PayUp and made a little bit of progress, at least showing up to the table of sort of what needs to be happening for gig work, which is obviously on everybody's mind right now. So that's a very little bit about me.
Thank you. Paige.
Hi, my name is Paige. I'm a gender fluid entity. And I came here to Seattle from Georgia. I was in my 40s before I left Georgia, and I just knew that I would have a better life here and it wouldn't be as repressive, and that's turned out to be very true. I've accomplished quite a lot since I came here. As far as the committee, I was walking through Columbia City one day and I saw this kind of worn out looking sign that had rainbow colors all over it and people hands holding. So I stopped and looked, and it was allyship. And then from there I talked to Taylor. We got to meet. We've been doing some important work in the committee, and I was on the Amazon diversity fancy word committee, and I quit that because they weren't doing anything. They were holding meetings and never following through. We got to meet with Dave Upthegrove, a local county council member who's working for universal basic income. I have never interacted with a career politician before, and I got to learn how to ask him questions and things like that, and tell my friends who they would all be affected by those decisions. And the only other thing is we can always use more people on the committee. It's pretty not that difficult to get an interview with Taylor if you're interested. And we have other committees in allyship too, but we just always need help and volunteers. And that's probably enough for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Paige. Yes, our last meeting was with Dave at the Grove, and what I found out from one of my other committee members is that San Francisco is doing a pilot project around the universal pay, and that is with the trans community. So they're doing a pilot project with the trans community in San Francisco, receiving universal, say the word again.
Basic income.
Basic income, yes, thank you. Basic income for the trans community pilot project. And Dave Upthegrove is also talking about what does that look like. And we were able to have a conversation with him around what does that look like and what does that mean and what would a pilot project look like here in King County if it ever got to happen. So it was awesome. Paige had to go because Paige has to go to work. So thanks, Chris and Paige, for being here and showing your support and for supporting our community. I love that. So the next 15 minutes, we have 15 minutes to ask questions. And if anybody wants to break out with Henny, which probably not because it's mainly us, but I will say, Henny, if you could talk a little bit about what is the legal clinic with Fair Work Center, so that people know out there.
Yeah, so the Fair Work Center working Washington kind of has 3 branches. One is the organizing branch, one is sort of education and outreach, or the base building branch, and the third one is the legal enforcement side, and that's where the legal clinic comes in. we have attorneys who will take consultations for whatever legal issues you're seeing at work. Oftentimes it ends up being something like wage theft or paid sick time, like we talked about today. Sometimes it can be, retaliation, discrimination. And, the important thing is that the people who come to us are informed about what their rights are at work, whether or not there is a problem that's actually covered by the law. I think the most important thing is that people are aware of what they're entitled to, what their protections are in the workplace. And that's kind of where the attorneys will help with that. And, they're able to interpret the law for pretty specific situations. So, we can look at the law and read it, but not really know how exactly it applies to our very specific situation, because, there's all sorts of things that happen. Everyone has different circumstances. And so I think that's where the attorneys can really be of assistance. If you go to the website at fairworkcenter.org, on the legal clinic page, there is a list of the kinds of issues that we mainly see, as well as some of the guidelines for the type of people that we prioritize. For example, we do have a soft income cap. So at the moment, I believe it's, like something like 70K for a household of 4, something like that. As well as if you're in a certain industry, we would also like to see you at our clinic as well. So yeah, please feel free to check out the website. Colleen has put it in the chat as well. And yeah, any questions?
Thank you. Thank you for that information. That's really helpful. And it is really great to check out the website to give that information. So again, since the website isn't on YouTube, I will say it's www.fairworkcenter.org. And if you want to go specifically to the legal clinic portion, and then that'll put you there. So do we want to ask these questions just for fun? I think it's fun.
Yeah.
I have them on a poll and polls. So our first question, and I don't know if these will show up on YouTube, but our first question is, how many workers do you need to work, or I'm sorry, how many hours do you need to work to receive 1 hour of PSST in a company that is over 250 employees in Seattle? And the drum roll is, we have 3 of 4. I think I'm the 4th. No.
I think
Come
we
on.
can't vote
Oh, okay.
because we're hosts. I was
Yeah.
thinking the same thing. Yeah, it's okay.
All right. So ending the poll, the answer is 30 hours. So and the key is the Seattle portion. So this is a Seattle portion of the law. Paid sick and safe time if you have over 250 employees in Seattle and you're accumulating 1 hour. You work 30 hours to do that. All right. Second question and second poll. Oh, share results. Okay. And no. And I'm sorry, apparently I don't know how to do, did it not save all my other polls? Oh, no, keeps replaying the other, pardon me. Here we are, launching the poll. When are you allowed to use your paid sick and safe time? Mark all that applies. You are sick, need to see a doctor, need to pick up a friend at an airport, care for an ill family member, need an extra day on your vacation. And it looks like everybody voted. So Yeah, it is. You're sick, need to see a doctor and care for a family member. Yeah, you can't add it to a vacation. I guess you could if you wanted to lie about it, but and you need to pick up a friend, that doesn't work. So, all right, poll number 3. Paid sick and safe time is the same as PTO. Is this true or false? Feels like a trick question, doesn't it?
It does kind of, that's okay.
I'm sorry. All right, so we have a 50-50. What is it, Colleen?
Well, in some ways it's kind of a trick question because like we said, it could be included in PTO, but it's also not exactly the same, but it might be the same. So I feel like the response is very appropriate that we got 50-50.
Same here. It is kind of a trick question. I'm sorry, my bad. So this one is on our wage theft. When should you do an errand for your company? During your 10-minute break, after hours, during work hours, during your lunch? And it is during your work hours. Don't let them use, as Chris has said once before, Chris told me it does not help everyone if you just are doing a good deed. It actually ends up hurting the work community. Get paid for the time that you are putting in. All right. If you receive your paycheck and it is less than you were told by 25 cents an hour, what should you do? Assume you didn't hear right on how much you were being paid. Wait and see the next paycheck states the amount, same amount. Ask your employer about it. Check your hiring documents to see if it states your pay, what your pay is. All right. So you could do it either way. I feel like there is 2 answers here. Check your hiring documents because that's where it's written. And if you don't have that, go to your employer for sure and always ask. You always want to ask what's going on.
Can I say one more thing with that one, Taylor?
Please.
And I don't know if we talked about this in the wage theft section, but you also have the right to the wage that you were promised. So
Right.
if you're, it could be the hiring documents say the same thing, but if you know, like, no, I have an email or we had a conversation or whatever, and I was promised $20 and now I'm getting $19.75, fight for it. And yeah, I love what Chris said in the chat. We need to normalize getting paid what we are promised and what we deserve. And so I just want to highlight that also.
Thank you. Yes. Next one is about discrimination. How many days do you have to file a complaint for discrimination in the workplace? 30 days, 80 days, 100 days, 130 days, 180 days, or 200 days?
And this will be great because I actually forgot to say this during that portion. So it's whatever you think.
All right, so the verdict is in. It is 180 days. You have 180 days to fill out a complaint for discrimination. And next discrimination question. If you are a person with a disability, you have the right to ask for accommodations such as additional breaks, certain types of work, or a modified task. Is this true or false? It is 100% true. Yes. So everybody answered that like boom. This one is the last question What protected classes are not protected against discrimination in the workplace? Any sensory, mental, or physical abilities, use of training, dog, guide, or service animal, race, color, religion, economic class, sexual orientation, including gender identity, national origin, sex, including pregnancy, marital status.
Oh no. Taylor, I think we lost you. Okay, well, oh, there you are.
You did, and I'm back. Sorry. Yeah, we lost me for a second, but the answer is economic class.
Good job, everyone.
So, good job. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you being here. Again, I will just state for one last time, we want to thank the LGBTQ Worker Rights Committee members, Chris and Paige, for speaking on behalf and join again. We want to also thank Colleen and Henny for being here from Fair Work Center for your partnership and answering some amazing questions. And then remember, if you want to join allyship to fight for economic and/or housing justice for queer and trans community, you can apply for one of our worker rights or housing right committees, and we will follow up with you. We will be sending out all the information today to those that have attended. And then if you, I want to also thank you all for attending. I really appreciate your time, and thank you, and have a great, wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone.